Yes, boo. The Supreme Court, in a highly contentious to take 5-4 decision, cited this very precise viewpoint on how you can arrive on what is a public use. They said, diverse and always evolving needs of society. We're always leery of when the Supreme Court uses the word evolving, right? Further, they said the government needs broad latitude in determining what the public needs justify the use of this power. An incredible decision, an incredible extension of takings law, and something that really riled up people all across the country. That's the bad news. What was the good news? There was an unprecedented, what I call kilo backlash. First, the City Council eventually issued a public apology to Mrs. Kilo for bulldozing her little pink house. Second, public was enraged all across the country. Every time people heard that they took someone's house and gave it to another private corporation to develop, people were, instinctively revolted that this must go too far. So what did that result in? 45 states rushed, either through ballot initiatives or through their legislature, to restrict takings law. This is a great, great result coming out of Kilo. And legal scholars, at least on our side, would say it did something incredibly important. It broke this march towards this view that the government had unlimited power to take your land for any purpose. I want to add the kicker of the Kilo case. That was in 2005. All of this property lies vacant today. They bulldozed all these people's homes, and the development fell through, and nothing was ever built. I think that shows the hubris of government. It shows the hubris that we conservatives continue to fight, that whether it's the Supreme Court or other government, that they don't always know what's best for the American people. So now I'm going to move into our most recent case, and that is the Murr case, which will be in front of the United States Supreme Court in less than a month. The Murr family bought a lakefront property in Wisconsin in the 1960s. They built a house, great place. A few years later, they bought an adjacent property. Flash forward to the 2000s, they decided they wanted to sell this adjacent property. And because of an unknown regulatory law that was put in place in the 70s, they were told they could not sell this property. The government wasn't willing to compensate them as a taking because they argued that, well, you have 0% of this property, but you have 100% of the property next door. And they're starting this new concept that you can add the two properties together, and as long as you have some use in the combined properties, then it's not a taking. We argued, the state of Nevada and many other states across the country, in an amicus to the Supreme Court, that this is truly an unprecedented reach for takings in public use. Specifically, we argue that, one, takings law and what is public use is already invented. The Supreme Court has already had to just kind of try to divine what this is as we go. Second, for those of you that have small businesses, know that you may have your shop on one parcel, you may have a garage or other things on another parcel. To act like these are all the same thing for eminent domain is really a shocking extension. Wisconsin has been successful at making this argument. We're encouraged that the Supreme Court has taken this case because we hope that they're going to draw a new line to say that you can't take 100% of someone's property and simply put it with another one and act like that's not a taking. So our biggest argument, and I'm going to channel Justice Scalia here, would be the following. The Founding Fathers didn't say, You shall not take private property for public use without just compensation unless they own property next door, in which case it's cool. You can take their property. They've got a nice little lakefront property anyway. What's it to you? Enjoy your property. Don't worry about your property next door. We argue that this is an unprecedented reach. We encourage you to watch out for the Murr case, support the Murrs, and let's hope that the Supreme Court gets this one right. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Okay, our next speaker is going to talk about intellectual property. As I mentioned, these include things like formulas, medicines, plans, logos. So let's all welcome Professor Adam Mossoff. He's an ACU Foundation Fellow, and he is currently at the Antonin Scalia Law School at George Mason University. Professor Mossoff.
Good morning. I'm here to talk to you about something extremely important, although a lot of people aren't aware of it because it underlies a lot of the goods and services that we use today, and that's intellectual property. And intellectual property is under attack, both domestically and internationally. And this is really important to understand why, but a lot of people don't do so because they don't understand the foundations of where intellectual property has come from and its key role in the United States and in American exceptionalism. You see, the founders created a republican government dedicated to the protection of life, liberty, and property under the rule of law. And this included the very important key protection of intellectual property. And so the American founders were not just political entrepreneurs who broke from England and our broader structure and nature of our government. They were also entrepreneurs in recognizing that creators and innovators should have the fruits of their labors protected to them, just as farmers and tradesmen historically have had theirs protected under the law. Thus, in the Constitution, for the very first time in human history, a founding document creating a government authorized that government to protect patents, which are property rights in technological innovation, and copyrights, which are property rights in new creative works like songs and movies and books. And in fact, Congress immediately acted on this. The founders recognized how important this was. And so some of the very first laws enacted by the first Congress in 1790 were the Patent Act and the Copyright Act of 1790. And thus, securing the intellectual property rights to all creators and innovators, it became a foundation for driving the Industrial Revolution in this country in the 19th century. Many people don't realize Samuel Colt's repeating firearm, the foundation of our Second Amendment protections, was a patented invention. So was Samuel Morse's telegraph, John Deere's plow, Charles Goodyear's invention of vulcanized rubber, Thomas Edison's light bulb, his invention of the record player, of our electrical distribution systems, our ability to use electricity. And thousands of other innovations arose from the protection of the rights of innovators in our country, confirming for the whole world that America was not just a beacon of liberty and freedom, it was a beacon of innovation and creativity, the true shining city on the hill. And thus, in the 20th century, protection of intellectual property drove the high-tech and biotech revolutions that we're all enjoying the benefits of from today. So the work of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, scientists and researchers working in their garages and universities in the 1970s is what gives us our miracle cures and our incredible high-tech technologies today. And this is confirmed again and again how important this is. A recent study by the Department of Commerce found that companies that rely on intellectual property rights in their business models contributed more than $6 trillion to the U.S. economy in 2014 and were responsible for 45 million jobs that year. 30% of all the jobs in the United States are based in intellectual property. President Abraham Lincoln, our first Republican president, wisely recognized this important principle when he said himself, quote, "The patent system added the fuel of interest to the fire of genius," end quote. And by the way, President Lincoln knew of which he spoke. To this day, he's the only US president to have received a patent on an invention that he created. Now, this is the foundation by which we need to understand the attacks on intellectual property today that are occurring both internationally and domestically. Now, domestically, like all property rights, like you just heard, are under attack in the United States, and intellectual property rights are under attack as well. It's become nearly impossible to obtain a patent in recent years on new high-tech innovation and biotech inventions that provide us these miracle cures, our smartphones, as I mentioned, our medical treatments for cancer and other things. And so the U.S. is in danger of losing its long-standing status as a world leader in innovation. Internationally, U.S. innovators are under attack in other countries, like China and South Korea, who use their antitrust laws to target U.S. companies and inventors for the sole benefit of protecting their own domestic companies and their own consumers. And these countries repeatedly fail to crack down on rampant piracy of creative works on the internet. Now, what makes this even worse is these countries have rationalized their attacks on U.S. innovators and creators by pointing to the very changes in the laws here in the United States that have weakened these protections. And to make matters even worse, the Obama administration repeatedly refused to defend U.S. innovators and creators when China and other countries attacked their rights. So U.S. competitiveness in the global economy is now threatened because our very rights of our own creators and innovators, the foundation of our innovation economy for over 250 years, has been seriously weakened and undermined. And this is so, I urge you to support wholeheartely intellectual property.
So can you just tell us, for people who maybe have not been to one of the showrooms, aren't familiar with Rent the Runway, what you guys do here?
So Rent the Runway gives women...
Others understood that by protecting the proprietary rights of artists, authors, entrepreneurs, innovators, and inventors, they were promoting the greater public welfare. The continued protection of these fundamental rights is essential to American innovation and competitiveness, end quote. So we should reclaim America's rightful leadership by securing stable and effective intellectual property rights for all innovators and creators. Thank you.
Okay, is this too many lawyers for you? Let's change pace and bring on the Chief of Police of Lindsay, Oklahoma, Stephen Mills. He's going to discuss our rights to personal property. Chief.
I want to thank Ed for the introduction. What he didn't say is I'm really just an old soldier. I'm a cattle rancher. I wear this uniform because I've been given and I accepted a position of responsibility for my fellow citizens. I intend to live up to that position of responsibility. I'm here to talk about asset forfeiture reform. There's various government and non-government agencies out there that are proponents for continuing civil asset forfeiture in its current form. Often these people will give you a scenario that there's a state trooper out on the highway somewhere and he sees a speeder coming. He stops the individual, searches the vehicle, and finds $400,000 all heat sealed and hidden up in the fenders of the vehicle, and they say that's cartel money. And then without civil asset forfeiture, the only thing that this trooper can do is write that individual a ticket and give the cartel their money back and send them down the road. I'm telling you, that's not how it is. That's not the reality of civil asset forfeiture. Here's the reality of civil asset forfeiture. The majority of forfeitures are less than $10,000. They aren't taken from hidden compartments in cars, and they aren't cartel drug money. An actual civil asset forfeiture is more like this. Your local octarian artist, we'll call her Grandma Moses, she just sold 10 paintings at the local flea market. She's got a few $1,000s hidden under the seat of her vehicle as she leaves. There's a local officer who's got legitimate information that drug dealers are also selling drugs at the local flea market. So he's watching as people leave the flea market, and he stops Grandma Moses and he talks to her and he says, "Hey, do you mind if I can search your vehicle?" And Grandma Moses, she loves the police. She's been grown up to respect the police. She knows that we're out there to protect her. She says, "Sure." The officer finds the $10,000 and he seizes it under civil asset forfeiture as drug money. Grandma Moses says, "Well, wait a second, that's my money. I've got it selling paintings." The officer says, "Prove it. Prove that it's not drug money and you can have it back." She doesn't know what to do. She calls the local prosecutor and gets the same story. The prosecutor says, "Yes, under civil asset forfeiture law, you have to prove that you're not the criminal. You have to prove that that's not drug money to get your money back." She calls the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department tells her the same thing. She keeps complaining and they finally tell her, "Look, you need to stop calling us and complaining, or we're going to look at you real hard. You want us to prove that you're a criminal? We're going to look at you real hard and we're going to prove you're a criminal." Now she really doesn't know what to do, because the last time they looked at her, they took her $10,000. So she stops complaining. They got her way. But do you think she really has that same respect for the police department and for the officers? Do you think she still trusts them to protect her? No, that's exactly right. No is the correct answer. How do I know this is the real reality of civil asset forfeiture? Well, I saw it firsthand, and it happened to me. I was a CID agent in Texas. I was running a counter-drug task force. We didn't conduct civil asset forfeitures, but we worked with other local agencies that did conduct forfeitures. After an arrest of a low-level drug dealer out in front of his grandmother's house, we were walking to this other agency. They were carrying the grandmother's television and furniture and all their household items out of the house. My partner asked the officers, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, she has to prove that she did not know what her grandson was doing, and she has to prove that she paid for this through legitimate money, and then she can have it back." And my partner, he looked at me and goes, "That doesn't seem right, does it?" And I said, "No," and we left. We couldn't stop it, but we didn't have to be a part of it. I also own a cattle ranch in Oklahoma. While I was assigned to this task force in Texas, my wife was home running the cattle ranch, and we had hired hands working for us. One of those hired hands was out running an errand, and he saw a spool of copper wire at a soon-to-be oil field site, and he stole that copper wire. Local citizens saw him do it and called the sheriff, as they should have. Sheriff came up and arrested him, as they should have. Stealing is wrong regardless of who does it. The problem was, when they arrested him, they also took my truck. Now, I just assumed that they seized my truck as evidence, and I called the sheriff's department. I said, "Hey, when are you going to be done with my truck?" And I was told, "We're not going to be done with it. You're not getting your truck back. We're taking that as under the civil asset forfeiture laws." I said, "Well, you can't do that. I'm an innocent owner. The law says that I'm an innocent owner." And they told me, "Well, prove you didn't know he was going to do that." I mean, think about that for a second. How do you prove that you don't know something? I mean, it's easy to prove you know something. You say what you know. But how do you prove that you don't know something? And that's what they were asking the citizen to do to get their rightful property back, was prove that they did not know something. Not under civil asset forfeiture. I didn't let it go. And after about 6 months, I did get my truck back. But it was an uphill fight the whole way. The average citizen wouldn't have had the knowledge, the tenacity, or the resources that I had, being who I was, to get my truck back and win that fight. I was a federal law enforcement agent, and they were calling me a dirty cop. They were threatening me with criminal charges and treating me like a criminal, all because I was fighting for my rights and trying to get my property back. What makes it worse is there's even actual classes out there teaching police officers to treat people like this to get them to shut up and go away. Even elected legislators fighting for asset forfeiture reform are treated like this. My friend Senator Kyle Loveless in Oklahoma has been trying to get a measure on to the Oklahoma legislator for 2 sessions now. Can't even get out of committee. He's being called a terrorist, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and worse for trying to effect a change. How strong can your position be if you won't even let it come up for debate? The primary function of police and judicial system is to protect the citizens. The police, we protect the citizen from the criminals, and the judicial system is there to protect the accused. It's not the best system, but it's the best system in the world. When the police and judicial system become the antagonists and no longer protect the rights of the accused, we have failed the greater mission of protecting the rights of the citizen. We have created innocent victims. Currently, the standard of proof to seize an individual's property is preponderance of evidence. I actually have to get more proof to get a warrant than I do to seize somebody's property. If the investigation stops at the side of the road after the property is seized, how are you going to get this evidence? You're not going to get any evidence of innocence. If you don't investigate the crime, you have an assumption of a crime. You don't have evidence of a crime. How do we fix this? 1, the burden of proof needs to be put back on the government as constitutionally intended. It means the police are going to have to start investigating the assumed crime, not just taking the property and moving down the road. If $400,000 an offender is evidence of a crime and should be taken, then it's evidence of a crime. Investigate the crime. We as police officers need to do our job, protecting the rights of the citizens. We can't serve the citizen while simultaneously depriving them of their natural and constitutional rights. One innocent victim is one too many and does way more damage than letting the criminal get away. President Trump, I want to thank your administration for your support of law enforcement. After the last 8 years, it's a wonderful and welcome change. I know you're being told by other members of law enforcement and associated groups that asset forfeiture reform is a bad idea, that it'll help the cartels and terrorists. I want you to know that there's many of us out in the field who don't agree with that sentiment. As law enforcement officers, we can't step on the rights of the citizens we are sworn to protect under the guise of protecting them. This country was founded of the people, by the people, and for the people with certain inalienable rights. That is what made this country strong, and that is what will make this country strong again. Thank you.
Okay, I think you've heard our speakers say fairly loudly and clearly, and let me put this in technical legal terms, stop taking our stuff. Let's face it, the left, including the last administration, didn't like private property. They didn't believe in it. You recall you didn't build that, which in short really means that's not yours. So they've been slowly boiling the frog and taking away property rights bit by bit. For homes, eminent domain and judges have expanded that term, eminent domain, to really allow the government to take anything for public use, which has been so broadly defined. So they've literally taken the homes of little old ladies to give it to other people. For intellectual property laws have gotten so eroded by the courts and our own laws, by Congress, that it makes it difficult for companies and people to own and, yes, profit. And profit's really not a bad word. Is this the only place where profit's not a bad word? From their work and their efforts. And this erosion has opened the door not only to problems here in the U.S., but to the taking of our property by other countries. And finally, With respect to personal property, you've seen how criminal laws have been turned upside down, how the burden of proof has come upon citizens to prove their innocence with respect to things they had nothing to do with. Even the police chief's own pickup truck was taken away from him. Crazy. So what should we be doing about it? What should we be thinking about it? Well, we have to remember always how fundamental our property rights are. We have to understand and recognize the problem and understand every day that this is something we've got to think about and do something for. We've got to encourage our legislature and our president to pass laws to protect our property rights. We've got to have judges appointed who understand the importance of these rights and their fundamental nature in our Constitution. And we've, of course, got to enter agreements with other countries which protect these rights of our own citizens. So thank you. Let's work together as a nation, and let's make sure that we don't let other people take our stuff. Thanks very much.
The idea of American greatness, of our country as the leader of the free and unfree world, has vanished. I've decided to do something about it. I couldn't stand to see what was happening to our great country. This mess calls for leadership in the worst way. It needs someone with common sense and business acumen, someone who can truly lead America back to what has made us great in the past. We need someone with a proven track record in business who understands greatness, someone who can rally us to the standard of excellence we once epitomized. I started with the issue of illegal immigration and proposed building a major wall that would be very high and completely impervious to the flood of immigrants who we don't want or need here illegally. Suddenly, Americans started to wake up to what was going on with regard to illegal immigration. Despite the large number of candidates who were running for the Republican nomination, what I was saying started to really hit home with people. I started drawing very large crowds so that we had to move our rallies into football stadiums and convention centers. The first national debate drew 24 million viewers, which set a record for cable television. All of a sudden, people who had never cared about the election or never voted before were rushing to our rallies. The rallies became...
Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful welcome, and I can't tell you how thrilled and delighted I am to be with you. It's a wonderful honor to be here at CPAC with each and every one of you. You're obviously passionate and committed conservative citizens all. That is my kind of people. This is suddenly a wonderful, wonderful, glorious morning in America, isn't it? I'm going to tell you the truth. I haven't had a bad morning since November 8th. I'm, of course, deeply grateful to Matt Slapp for the kind invitation to join you here. I know we're all grateful to Matt and the American Conservative Union for their great work and their leadership in the cause of liberty and this great, great republic of ours. Much of America this morning, by the way, they're abuzz about what you are doing here. What is going on at CPAC? They're talking about something called, by one Steve Bannon, the deconstruction of the administrative state. They're talking about Vice President Pence's call to each and every one of us and our fellow citizens to march for the ideals and the values Americans cherish, to mobilize, to defend the president's agenda. To march for President Trump because, as the Vice President said last night, the Dems, and I will be candid with you, I spell that D-I-M-M-S, the left, the opposition party of the national left-wing media, as the Vice President said, are not idle. When has any of us, think about this, please. What would be the last time you heard a Republican Vice President of the United States call for our citizens to march, to mobilize, for crying out loud? I have to tell you, that is music to my ears, and it lifts my spirits, and I hope it does yours, because I mean to march, and I hope you will too. Republicans, conservatives, all of us have been called to the ramparts to defend this administration and its policies. That, ladies and gentlemen, is exciting. It is absolutely exhilarating. And we are now part of this moment and this history, along with the president who has made it possible. We've been called to action at home, in Washington, D.C., and constituent town halls all across the country, targeted by the left. Does anyone here doubt they've been targeted by left-wing activists? As we go about the business of reclaiming our country, our values, our land, and our destiny, Benjamin Franklin cautioned our government is the world's greatest constitutional republic, if only we can keep it. Well, thanks to you, our fellow citizens who voted for Donald Trump and Mike Pence, I assure you I have not one single doubt whatsoever that we will keep this republic. And I believe truly that our work will be exhilarating each and every single day. It will never be drudgery. After all, there are billions of people around the world who would gladly take up our task in trade to become citizens of this great nation. Of course, there are millions of people who also take something of a shortcut occasionally. They do overstay their visas. They do cross our southern border. And in addition to those folks, there is the matter of tens of billions of dollars that flow from America to Mexico. Some $30 to $50 billion in illegal drugs that are brought into this country. The $25 to $40 billion in remittances from principally Mexican nationals in this country, but Central American nationals as well, sending all of that money back to their families. There is the $60 billion trade surplus that Donald Trump has talked about on the campaign trail and is focused on as president. Do you recall how shocked, utterly shocked, the open borders, cheap labor establishment, and left-wing national media were when Donald Trump first said, "Secure the border, build that wall, stop human traffic and the deadly drugs that devastate so many, and protect Americans, our workers, our young people, our families, and our very way of life." Secretary of State Tillerson and Homeland Security Secretary Kelly yesterday in Mexico City, learning firsthand how fiercely the government of Mexico will fight for all of that money in all its forms. The establishment in this country is not the only establishment being turned upside down by President Trump and his administration. And then there are the Mexican drug cartels, and after 25 years of NAFTA, half of Mexico remains in poverty. A lot of work to be done, and this president has already in 36 days demonstrated that he and his administration are just the people to work for America. Think about what we have witnessed. You don't hear it from the national media. You don't hear it from the opposing party. You don't hear it from some of the leaders of the Republican Party. But this president has already carried out 24 executive actions, orders, memoranda, withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Keystone Pipeline and Dakota Access, those pipelines approved, and they're moving ahead. The nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch. And by the way, he made that great nomination, that great appointment, and still to this day continues with a clear eye and a strong voice criticizing the judiciary, because that is the American way. Meetings with world leaders, one after another, Abe, Trudeau, May, Netanyahu. Has anybody in years seen Netanyahu smile so broadly? There is a new light in America, and my goodness, all those countless meetings already with CEOs. He's talking to business leaders, the private sector, capitalist. Capitalist is back in vogue. Thousands of jobs he's already created and saved, and he did much of it before he was even in the Oval Office. He's met with labor unions. He's brought labor unions and the leaders into the White House. Do you know many of those labor leaders had never seen the Oval Office? That's how well treated they were by the previous occupant of the White House. The left-wing media, the opposition party, refuses to credit this president in his 36 days in office. They're at war with this president. But they're ignoring also about $3 trillion in market cap that has been gained in our equities market since he was elected. You can run all the popularity polls you want. You can run all of the confidence metrics and indexes you want. But $3 trillion in American stocks is one heck of a statement by the American people about our new president. Housing is showing strong signs of recovery, existing home sales at a 10-year high. Workers are only beginning to re-enter the marketplace. The dollar is strong. Oh yes, there is $20 trillion in debt. There are some issues, no question. Many years ago, 1988, I was doing one of the last interviews that Ronald Reagan did as president in the Oval Office. And I asked him about deficits, and I asked him about the trade deficit, the national debt, the federal budget deficit, as he was driving the country toward succeeding in the collapse of Marxist-Leninism and the end of the Soviet Union because of the budgets that he created, the military strength that he built, and that great, great slogan, which was his: prosperity and peace through strength. Reagan said, as I asked him about those deficits, because I could not ignore those largest in our history, Ronald Reagan looked at me and he sort of cocked his head. And I couldn't wait to hear what he was going to say about economic policy on those issues. And he said, well, Lou, I think they're about right for a country our size. To this day, I don't know what he meant with that answer. But I can tell you, he was exactly right, wasn't he? To have succeeded as a nation in defeating our ideological enemy, to have ended the Cold War. There are issues that loom larger in the minds of leaders, and I believe that we have elected another such leader in President Trump. The left, who would bleed this nation with redistributive economics and ever greater state power and strip our citizens of their individual rights, trying to eliminate individual freedom. And make no mistake, the venal, vicious attacks against our president and his administration by the left-wing national media will continue, unleashed by the large global corporatists who own them. It is a mistake to ignore who has given them permission to be what they have become. This national left-wing media is neither independent nor free, but doing the bidding rather of the establishment, the elites against whom this president campaigned. I don't believe it's a fair fight, by the way. I think this president and his administration will easily prevail. I have absolute confidence in you. I believe you will march, you will mobilize, you will support this president, you will support his administration, his policies, and President Trump and this country are most importantly of all, and you and I along with them, on the right side of history. I want to say I am so excited about our prospects and our future, and the people who have joined together to make possible this presidency and to make possible this nation and its continued arc in history. I would like to quote in closing one of my favorite philosophers. He's a French philosopher. Excuse me, I can't do that. Not in, it's America first. It's buy America, it's hire America. I'm going to conclude simply by saying, Yogi Berra once said, the future is not what it once was, because of what you did and what we accomplished on November 8th. And because of all that, the future of America the United States of America, I believe, looms brighter than as never before. And I thank you for all you have done and will continue to do to make that future possible for succeeding generations of great Americans like you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Good to see you.
The idea of American greatness, of our country as the leader of the free and unfree world, has vanished. I've decided. The idea of American greatness, of our country as the leader of the free and unfree world, has vanished. I've decided to do something about it. I couldn't stand to see what was happening to our great country. This mess calls for leadership in the worst way. It needs someone with common sense and business acumen, someone who can truly lead America back to what has made us great in the past. We need someone with a proven track record in business who understands greatness, someone who can rally us to the standard of excellence we once epitomized. I started with the issue of illegal immigration and proposed building a major wall that would be very high and completely impervious to the flood of immigrants who we don't want or need here illegally. Suddenly, Americans started to wake up to what was going on with regard to illegal immigration. Despite the large number of candidates who were running for the Republican nomination, what I was saying started to really hit home with people. I started drawing very large crowds so that we had to move our rallies into football stadiums and convention centers. The first national debate drew 24 million viewers, which set a record for cable television. All of a sudden, people who had never cared about the election or never voted before were rushing to our rallies. The rallies became massive. The crowds were unbelievable. The enthusiasm was based on pure love and love of what we were doing. The media, the politicians, and the so-called leaders of our country reacted in horror. But I persevered and went directly to the people because I don't need anyone's financial support, nor do I need anyone's approval as to what to say. I just had to do the right thing. I had to do it. I had no choice. I see what's happening to our country. It's going to hell.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a reminder that the Potomac Ballroom is at capacity. If you depart the ballroom at this time, you will not be allowed to re-enter.
Also wir sind gegründet in 1973. Also lieben Sie ohne Groschen. Ach so. Wenn die vor 8 Jahren hergezogen sind. Ach so. Ich war nur 5 Jahre in Wien. Jetzt hier Groschen. Und das war auf jeden Fall interessant, oder? Ja, gerade das Ende des Wissens. Wie ist das? Das ist 73 Jahre hier. Ja. Das ist auch Umwelt. Aber in Deutschland mal wieder. Das ist lustig, weil es ist geschrieben in Deutsch. Ja, nie eine Mehrwert gemacht. Jetzt könnte da ja Deutschliberaler Partei. CDU, die Republikaner, nee. So groß wie Montana, aber 7-mal dichter besiedelt als Amerika. Also diese Wahl, die sagen immer, ach, die Deutsche, oh, der System so gut, aber ich sage, ja, ich hätte das, ja, wir müssen das leisten. Genau. Ja, es wäre toll, das wäre schön, wenn es noch mehr, aber aber aufgewachsen auf Iran. Michigan, also sagen wir, das ist Michigan. Also die wohnen hier oben. Ja, genau. Also was denken Sie, ich weiß, dass Sie nur reflektieren nur, aber was denken Sie über die amerikanische Politik?
Persönlich finde ich sehr schwierig. Mir macht es ein bisschen Sorgen. Ich bin selber Immigrant. Ich bin selber auf dem Visum hier. Es gab keine Sicherung. Ich bin immer noch passiert, was ich nicht so gerne mag.
Ja, genau.
Quasi der Seite, die nicht so richtig gefällt.
Ja, das war
ich natürlich auch, wenn ich auch nicht so gefällt.
Also, ja, ich sage, ich hoffe, dass das dann erfolgreich ist, weil das heißt, dass Amerika aber ich kann nicht sagen, dass ich zustimmen auf jede ja, also genau. Also ich kaufe nicht wirklich das ganze Programm, das ganze Paket. Aber ich mache einige Sachen. Und naja, nicht nur, das würde ich sagen, die Richtung ist auch fraglich. Also, was ich denke, ist kleine von der Regierung. Das war
Please take your seats. The program will begin shortly.
Also schön kennenzulernen.
The idea. The idea of American greatness, of our country as the leader of the free and unfree world, has vanished. I've decided to do something about it. I couldn't stand to see what was happening to our great country. This mess calls for leadership in the worst way. It needs someone with common sense and business acumen, someone who can truly lead America back to what has made us great in the past. We need someone with a proven track record in business who understands greatness, someone who can rally us to the standard of excellence we once epitomized. I started with the issue of illegal immigration and proposed building a major wall that would be very high and completely impervious to the flood of immigrants who we don't want or need here illegally. Suddenly, Americans started to wake up to what was going on with regard to illegal immigration. Despite the large number of candidates who were running for the Republican nomination, what I was saying started to really hit home with people. I started drawing very large crowds so that we had to move our rallies into football stadiums and convention centers. The first national debate drew 24 million viewers, which set a record for cable television. All of a sudden, people who had never cared about the election or never voted before were rushing to our rallies. The rallies became massive. The crowds were unbelievable. The enthusiasm was based on pure love and love of what we were doing. The media, the politicians, and the so-called leaders of our country reacted in horror. But I persevered and went directly to the people because I don't need anyone's financial support, nor do I need anyone's approval as to what to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and silence all electronic devices. The program will begin shortly.
To our country. It's going to hell. I had to do it. I've committed to a truly more powerful military, one prepared and equipped to stand up to any and all of our foes. When we draw a line in the sand, it needs to mean something to all, especially our enemies. I've released a tax plan that gives the middle class and those with lower incomes a chance to keep more of what they earn, while restructuring how the richest Americans will be paying taxes. I've introduced a whole new approach to job creation by encouraging companies to bring more of their jobs in manufacturing back to the United States, home where it belongs, along with the trillions of dollars.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mercedes Schlapp from the Washington Times and American Conservative Union's chairman, Matt Schlapp.
I don't think we can. Did you all show up for us?
Well, hello, Mr. Deplorable.
Hello, Mrs. Irredeemable. You know, the last time a president of the United States came to CPAC in his first year, Ronald Reagan in 1981.
Wait. Okay, so that means the 1980s. I'm pretty sure they didn't have Twitter back then. But just like the 1980s, we're in a critical moment for our nation. And we have with us an amazing leader who has become the voice of the forgotten men and women of this country.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are no longer forgotten.
And you know what I'm learning is how good it feels to have somebody lead our country who knows how to fight. And he's fighting for you. And the other thing I've learned, especially over the course of the last couple days, is that when he fights for us, he unites us. And you know something else, Mr. President? As you continue to fight, all of us here will continue to have your back. Do you know what comes next here? It is my honor to introduce to CPAC 2017 our president, Donald Trump.
Great to be back at CPAC. It's a place I have really, I love this place. Love you people. So thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank Matt Schlapp and his very, very incredible wife and boss, Mercedes, who have been fantastic friends and supporters, and so great when I watch them on television defending me. Nobody has a chance. So I want to thank Matt and Mercedes. And when Matt called and asked, I said, absolutely, I'll be there with you. I mean, the real reason I said it, I didn't want him to go against me, because that one you can't beat. So I said absolutely, and it really is an honor to be here. I wouldn't miss a chance to talk to my friends. These are my friends. And we'll see you again next year and the year after that. And I'll be doing this with CPAC whenever I can, and I'll make sure that we're here a lot. You know, if you remember my first major speech, sit down, everybody, come on. You know, the dishonest media, they'll say, he didn't get a standing ovation. You know why? No, you know why? Because everybody stood and nobody sat. So they will say, he never got a standing ovation, right? So they are the worst. So, sit down. Donald Trump did not get a standing ovation. They leave out the part, they never sat down. They leave that out. So I just want to thank. But you know, my first major speech was at CPAC, and probably 5 or 6 years ago. First major political speech. And you were there. And it was, I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the commotion. And then they did these polls where I went through the roof and I wasn't even running, right? But it gave me an idea. And I got a little bit concerned when I saw what was happening in the country. And I said, let's go to it. So it was very exciting. I walked the stage on CPAC. I'll never forget it, really. I had very little notes and even less preparation. So when you had practically no notes and no preparation, and then you leave and everybody was thrilled, I said,
I think I like this business. I would have come last year, but I was worried that I would be, at that time, too controversial. We wanted border security. We wanted very, very strong military. We wanted all of the things that we're going to get. And people considered that controversial, but you didn't consider it controversial. So I've been with CPAC for a long time. All of these years we've been together, and now you finally have a president. Finally. Took you a long time. Took you a long time. And it's patriots like you that made it happen, believe me. Believe me. You did it because you love your country, because you want a better future for your children, and because you want to make America great again. The media didn't think we would win. The pundits, you're right, they had an idea. The pundits didn't think we'd win. The consultants that suck up all that money, oh, they suck it up. They're so good. They're not good at politics, but they're really good at sucking up people's money. Especially my opponents, because I kept them down to a minimum. But the consultants didn't think we would win. But they all underestimated the power of the people, you. And the people proved them totally wrong. Never and this is so true, and this is what's been happening. Never underestimate the people. Never. I don't think it'll ever happen again. And I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. Because they have no sources, they just make them up when there are none. I saw one story recently where they said 9 people have confirmed. There are no 9 people. I don't believe there was 1 or 2 people. 9 people. And I said, give me a break, because I know the people. I know who they talk to. There were no 9 people, but they say 9 people. And somebody reads it, and they think, oh, 9 people, they have 9 sources. They make up sources. They're very dishonest people. In fact, in covering my comments, the dishonest media did not explain that I called the fake news the enemy of the people, the fake news. They dropped off the word fake. And all of a sudden, the story became the media is the enemy. They take the word fake out. And now I'm saying, oh, no, this is no good. But that's the way they are. So I'm not against the media. I'm not against the press. I don't mind bad stories if I deserve them. And I tell you, I love good stories, but we won't talk. I don't get too many of them. But I am only against the fake news media or press. Fake, fake. They have to lead that word. I'm against the people that make up stories and make up sources. They shouldn't be allowed to use sources unless they use somebody's name. Let their name be put out there. Let their name be put out. A source says that Donald Trump is a horrible, horrible human being. Let him say it to my face. Let there be no more sources. And remember this, and not all in all cases. I mean, I had a story written yesterday about me in Reuters by a very honorable man. It was a very fair story. There are some great reporters around. They're talented, they're honest as the day is long. They're great. But there are some terrible, dishonest people. And they do a tremendous disservice to our country and to our people, a tremendous disservice. They are very dishonest people, and they shouldn't use sources. They should put the name of the person. You will see stories dry up like you've never seen before. So you have no idea how bad it is, because if you are not part of the story, and I put myself in your position sometimes, because many of you, you're not part of the story. And if you're not part of the story, you know, then you sort of know. If you are part of the story, you know what they're saying is true or not. So when they make it up, and they make up something else, and you saw that before the election, polls. The polls. They come out with these polls, and everybody was so surprised. Actually, a couple of polls got it right. I must say, Los Angeles Times did a great job. Shocking, because, you know, they did a great job. And we had a couple of others that were right. But generally speaking, I mean, I can tell you the network. Somebody said, a poll came out. And I say, what network is it? And they'll say a certain, let's not even mention names, right? Sure. Well, you have a lot of them. Look, the Clinton News Network is one. Totally. Take a look, honestly. Take a look at their polls over the last 2 years. Now, you'd think they'd fire the pollster, right? After years and years of getting battered. But I don't, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're just bad at polling. Or maybe they're not legit. But it's one or the other. Look at how inaccurate. Look at CBS. Look at ABC also. Look at NBC. Take a look at some of these polls. They're so bad, so inaccurate. And what that does is it creates a false narrative. It creates like this narrative that's just like, we're not going to win. And people say, oh, I love Trump, but you know, I'm not feeling great today. He can't win, so I won't go and vote. I won't go and vote. It creates a whole false deal. And we have to fight it, folks. We have to fight it. They're very smart, they're very cunning, and they're very dishonest. So just to conclude, I mean, it's a very sensitive topic, and they get upset when we expose their false stories. They say that we can't criticize their dishonest coverage because of the First Amendment. You know, they always bring up the First Amendment. And I love the First Amendment. Nobody loves it better than me. Nobody. I mean, who uses it more than I do? But the First Amendment gives all of us, it gives it to me, it gives it to you, it gives it to all Americans, the right to speak our minds freely. It gives you the right, and me the right, to criticize fake news and criticize it strongly. And many of these groups are part of the large media corporations that have their own agenda, and it's not your agenda, and it's not the country's agenda. It's their own agenda. They have a professional obligation as members of the press to report honestly. But as you saw throughout the entire campaign, and even now, the fake news doesn't tell the truth. Doesn't tell the truth. So just in finishing, I say it doesn't represent the people. It never will represent the people. And we're going to do something about it, because we have to go out and we have to speak our minds and we have to be honest. Our victory was a win like nobody has ever seen before. And I'm here fighting for you, and I will continue to fight for you. The victory and the win was something that really was dedicated to a country and people that believe in freedom, security, and the rule of law. Our victory was a victory and a win for conservative values. And our victory was a win for everyone who believes it's time to stand up for America, to stand up for the American worker, and to stand up for the American flag. Yeah, there we should stand up. Come on. There we should stand up. Okay. And by the way, we love our flag. And by the way, you folks are in here, the place is packed. There are lines that go back 6 blocks. And I tell you that because you won't read about it, okay? But there are lines that go back 6 blocks. There is such love in this country for everything we stand for. You saw that on Election Day. And you're going to see it more and more. So we're all part of this very historic movement, a movement the likes of which, actually, the world has never seen before. There's never been anything like this. There's been some movements, but there's never been anything like this. There's been some movements that petered out, like Bernie, petered out. But it was a little rigged against him, you know, superdelegate. She had so many delegates before the thing even started. I actually said to my people, how does that happen? Not that I'm a fan of Bernie, but a lot of Bernie people voted for Trump. You know why? Because he's right on one issue, trade. He was right about trade. Our country is being absolutely devastated with bad trade deals. So he was right about that. But we got a lot of Bernie support. So actually, I like Bernie, okay? I like Bernie. But I'm here today to tell you what this movement means for the future of the Republican Party and for the future of America. First, we need to define what this great, great unprecedented movement is and what it actually represents. The core conviction of our movement is that we are a nation that put and will put its own citizens first. For too long, we've traded away our jobs to other countries. So terrible. We've defended other nations' borders while leaving ours wide open. Anybody can come in. Oh, we're going to build the wall. Don't worry about it. We're building the wall. We're building the wall. In fact, it's going to start soon. Way ahead of schedule. Way ahead of schedule. It's way, way, way ahead of schedule. It's going to start very soon. General Kelly, by the way, has done a fantastic job. Fantastic job he's done. And remember, we are getting the bad ones out. These are bad dudes. We're getting the bad ones out. Okay? We're getting the bad. If you watch these people, it's like, oh, gee, that's so sad. We're getting bad people out of this country, people that shouldn't be, whether it's drugs or murder or other things. We're getting bad ones out. Those are the ones they go first, and I said it from day one. Basically, all I've done is keep my promise. We've spent trillions of dollars overseas while allowing our own infrastructure to fall into total disrepair and decay. In the Middle East, we've spent, as of 4 weeks ago, $6 trillion. Think of it. And by the way, the Middle East is in what, I mean, it's not even close. It's in much worse shape than it was 15 years ago. If our presidents would have gone to the beach for 15 years, we would be in much better shape than we are right now. That I can tell you. Be a hell of a lot better. We could have rebuilt our country 3 times with that money. This is the situation that I inherited. I inherited a mess, believe me. We also inherited a failed health care law that threatens our medical system with absolute and total catastrophe. Now, I've been watching, and nobody says it, but Obamacare doesn't work, folks. I mean, I could say, I could talk. It doesn't work. And now people are starting to develop a little warm heart. But the people that you're watching, they're not you. They're largely, many of them are the side that lost. You know, they lost the election. It's like, how many elections do we have to have? They lost the election. But I always say, Obamacare doesn't work. And these same people 2 years ago and a year ago were complaining about Obamacare. And the bottom line, we're changing it. We're going to make it much better. We're going to make it less expensive. We're going to make it much better. Obamacare covers very few people. And remember, deduct from the number all of the people that had great health care that they loved that was taken away from them. Was taken away from them. Millions of people were very happy with their health care. They had their doctor. They had their plan. Remember the lie? 28 times. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your plan. Over and over and over again, you heard it. So we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. And I tell Paul Ryan and all of the folks that we're working with very hard, Dr. Tom Price, very talented guy. But I tell them, from a purely political standpoint, the single best thing we can do is nothing. Let it implode completely. It's already imploding. You see the carriers are all leaving. I mean, it's a disaster. But 2 years don't do anything. The Democrats will come to us and beg for help. They'll beg, and it's their problem. But it's not the right thing to do for the American people. It's not the right thing to do. We inherited a national debt that has doubled in 8 years. Think of it, $20 trillion. It's doubled. And we inherited a foreign policy marked by one disaster after another. We don't win anymore. When was the last time we won? Do we win a war? Do we win anything? Do we win anything? We're going to win. We're going to win big, folks. We're going to start winning again. Believe me. We're going to win. But we're taking a firm, bold, and decisive measure. We have to turn things around. The era of empty talk is over. It's over. Now is the time for action. So let me tell you about the actions that we're taking right now to deliver on our promise to the American people and on my promise to make America great again. We've taken swift and strong action to secure the southern border of the United States and to begin the construction of a great, great border wall. By doing this, and with the help of our great border police, with the help of ICE, with the help of General Kelly, and all of the people that are so passionate about this, our Border Patrol, I'll tell you what they do. They came and endorsed me. ICE came and endorsed me. They never endorsed a presidential candidate before. They might not even be allowed to. But they were disgusted with what they saw. And we'll stop it. We'll stop the drugs from pouring into our nation and poisoning our youth. Pouring in. Pouring in. We get the drugs, they get the money. We get the problems, they get the cash. No good, no good. Going to stop. By stopping the flow of illegal immigration, we will save countless tax dollars, and that's so important because the dollars that we're losing are beyond anything that you can imagine. and the tax dollars that can be used to rebuild struggling American communities, including our inner cities. We are also going to save countless American lives. As we speak today, immigration officers are finding the gang members, the drug dealers, and the criminal aliens and throwing them the hell out of our country. And we will not let them back in. They're not coming back in, folks. If they do, they're going to have bigger problems than they ever dreamt of. I'm also working with the Department of Justice to begin reducing violent crime. I mean, can you believe what's happening in Chicago, as an example? 2 days ago, 7 people were shot, and I believe killed. 7 people. 7 people. Chicago, a great American city, 7 people shot and killed. We will support the incredible men and women of law enforcement. Thank you. And thank them. I've also followed through on my campaign promise and withdrawn America from the Trans-Pacific Partnership so that we can protect our economic freedom. And we're going to make trade deals, but we're going to do one-on-one. And if they misbehave, we terminate the deal, and then they'll come back and we'll make a better deal. None of these big quagmire deals that are a disaster. Just take a look, by the way, take a look at NAFTA, one of the worst deals ever made by any country having to do with economic development. It's economic undevelopment as far as our country is concerned. We're preparing to repeal and replace the disaster known as Obamacare. We're going to save Americans from this crisis and give them the access to the quality health care they need and deserve. We have authorized the construction, one day, of the Keystone and Dakota Access Pipeline. And issued a new rule. This took place while I was getting ready to sign. I said, who makes the pipes for the pipeline? Well, sir, it comes from all over the world. Isn't that wonderful? I said, nope. Comes from the United States, or we're not building it. American steel. If they want a pipeline in the United States, they're going to use pipe that's made in the United States. Do we agree? But can you imagine, I told the story the other day. Can you imagine the gentleman, never met him, don't even know the name of his company. I actually sort of know it, but I want to get it exactly correct. Big, big, powerful company. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the pipeline. Same thing with the Dakota, different place. They got their approvals, everything in the case of Dakota, then all of a sudden they couldn't connect it because they had people protesting that never showed up before. But with the Keystone, so they spent hundreds of millions of dollars with bloodsucker consultants, you know, sucking the blood out of the company. Don't worry, I used them all my life, okay? Don't worry, we're going to get it approved. I'm connected, I'm a lobbyist, don't worry. Bottom line, Obama didn't sign it, right? Could be 42,000 jobs, somewhere around there, a lot of jobs. Didn't sign it. But can you imagine? He gave up a year ago. It was dead. Now he's doing nothing. Calling his wife, hello, darling, I'm a little bored. You know, that pipeline, that has killed us. That has killed our company. Knock, knock. Mr. So-and-so. The Keystone Pipeline, sir, out of nowhere has just been approved. Now, can you imagine the expression? And you know the sad part? Those same blood-sucking consultants that hit him for all the money and failed, they're now going to go back to him and say, didn't we do a great job? We want more money, right? Because that's the way the system works. A little bit off, but that's the way the system works. We're preparing bold action to lift the restrictions on American energy, including shale oil, natural gas, and beautiful, clean coal, and we're going to put our miners back to work. Miners are going back to work. Miners are going back to work, folks. Sorry to tell you that, but they're going back to work. We have begun a historic program to reduce the regulations that are crushing our economy, crushing. And not only our economy, crushing our jobs because companies can't hire. We're going to put the regulation industry out of work and out of business. And by the way, I want regulation. I want to protect our environment. I want regulations for safety. I want all of the regulations that we need, and I want them to be so strong and so tough. But we don't need 75% of the repetitive, horrible regulations that hurt companies, hurt jobs, make us non-competitive overseas with other companies from other countries. That we don't need. But we're going to have regulation. It's going to be really strong and really good, and we're going to protect our environment, and we're going to protect the safety of our people and our workers, okay? Another major promise is tax reform. We are going to massively lower taxes on the middle class, reduce taxes on American business, and make our tax code more simple and much more fair for everyone, including the people and the business. Thank you. In anticipation of these and other changes, jobs are already starting to pour back into our country. You see that. In fact, I think I did more than any other pre-president. They say president-elect. President-elect is meeting with Ford. He's meeting with Chrysler. He's meeting with General Motors. I just want to save a little time. Because Ford and Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, Sprint, Intel, and so many others are now, because of the election result, making major investments in the United States, expanding production, and hiring more workers. And they're going back to Michigan, and they're going back to Ohio, and they're going back to Pennsylvania, and they're going back to North Carolina, and to Florida. It's time for all Americans to get off of welfare and get back to work. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. You are going to love it. We're also putting in a massive budget request for our beloved military. And we will be substantially upgrading all of our military, offensive, defensive, everything, bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and hopefully we'll never have to use it, but nobody's going to mess with us, folks. Nobody. It will be one of the greatest military buildups in American history. No one will dare question, as they have been, because we're very depleted, very, very depleted. Sequester. Nobody will dare question our military might again. We believe in peace through strength, and that's what we will have. As part of my pledge to restore safety for the American people, I have also directed the defense community to develop a plan to totally obliterate ISIS. Working with our allies, we will eradicate this evil from the face of the earth. At the same time, we fully understand that national security begins with border security. Foreign terrorists will not be able to strike America if they cannot get into our country. And by the way, take a look at what's happening in Europe, folks. Take a look at what's happening in Europe. I took a lot of heat on Sweden. And then a day later, I said, has anybody reported what's going on? And it turned out that they didn't, not too many of them did. Take a look at what happened in Sweden. I love Sweden. Great country, great people. I love Sweden. But they understand I'm right. The people over there understand I'm right. Take a look at what's happening in Sweden. Take a look at what's happening in Germany. Take a look at what's happened in France. Take a look at Nice and Paris. I have a friend. He's a very, very substantial guy. He loves the City of Lights. He loves Paris. For years, every year during the summer, he would go to Paris. It was automatic with his wife and his family. I hadn't seen him in a while. And I said, Jim, let me ask you a question. How's Paris doing? Paris? I don't go there anymore. Paris is no longer Paris. That was 4 years, 4 or 5 years has it gone there. He wouldn't miss it for anything. Now he doesn't even think in terms of going there. Take a look at what's happening to our world, folks. And we have to be smart. We have to be smart. We can't let it happen to us. So let me state this as clearly as I can. We are going to keep radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country. We will not be deterred from this course. And in a matter of days, we will be taking brand new action to protect our people and keep America safe. You will see the action. I will never, ever apologize for protecting the safety and security of the American people. I won't do it. If it means I get bad press, if it means people speak badly of me, it's okay. Doesn't bother me. The security of our people is number one, is number one. Our administration is running with great efficiency, even though I still don't have my cabinet approved. Nobody mentions that. Do you know I still have people out there waiting to be approved? And everyone knows they're going to be approved. It's just a delay, delay, delay. It's really sad. It's really sad. And these are great people. These are some great people. We still don't have our cabinet. I assume we're setting records for that. That's the only thing good about it, is we're setting records. I love setting records. But I hate having a cabinet meeting and I see all these empty seats. I said, Democrats, please approve our cabinet and get smart on health care, too, if you don't mind. But we're taking meetings every day with top leaders in business, in science, and industry. Yesterday, I had 29 of the biggest business leaders in the world in my office. Caterpillar Tractor, Campbell's Soup. We had everybody. We had everybody. I like Campbell's Soup. We had everybody. And we came to a lot of very good conclusions, and a lot of those folks that are in that room are going to be building big, massive new plants and lots of jobs. And you know what? They're going to be building them in this country, not in some other country. We're meeting with unions, meeting with law enforcement, and we're meeting with leaders from all around the world. Where the White House doors used to be totally closed. They were closed, folks. You don't realize that. They were closed. They're now wide open. And they're open for people doing business for our country and putting people to work. And when they come into the White House, we're translating these meetings into action. One by one, we're checking off the promises we made to the people of the United States. One by one. A lot of promises. And we will not stop until the job is done. We will reduce your taxes. We will cut your regulations. We will support our police. We will defend our flag. We will rebuild our military. We will take care of our great veterans. We're taking care of our veterans. We will fix our broken and embarrassing trade deals that are no good. None of them. You wonder, where did the people come from that negotiated these deals? Where did they come from? Well, they came also from campaign contributions, I must be honest with you. They're not as stupid as you think. We will cut wasteful spending. We will promote our values. We will rebuild our inner cities. We will bring back our jobs and our dreams. So true. So true. And by the way, we will protect our Second Amendment. You know, Wayne and Chris are here from the NRA, and they didn't have that on the list. It's lucky I thought about it. But we will indeed. And they're great people. And by the way, they love our country. They love our country. The NRA has been a great supporter. They love our country. The forgotten men and women of America will be forgotten no longer. That is the heart of this new movement and the future of the Republican Party. People came to vote, and these people, the media, they said, where are they coming from? What's going on here? These are hardworking, great Americans. These are unbelievable people who have not been treated fairly. Hillary called them deplorable. They're not deplorable. Who would have thought that a word was going to play so badly? That's the problem in politics. One wrong word and it's over. She also said irredeemable, but we won't mention that. The GOP will be, from now on, the party also of the American worker. You know, we haven't been, as a group, given credit for this. But if you look at how much bigger our party has gotten during this cycle, during the early days when we had 17 people running the primaries, millions and millions of people were joining. Now, I won't say it was because of me, but it was, okay? And we have an amazing, strong, powerful party that truly does want to see America be great again, and it will see it, and it's going to see it a lot sooner than you think, believe me, a lot sooner than you think. We will not answer to donors or lobbyists or special interests, but we will serve the citizens of the United States of America, believe me. Global cooperation, dealing with other countries, getting along with other countries is good. It's very important. But there is no such thing as a global anthem, a global currency, or a global flag. This is the United States of America that I'm representing. I'm not representing the globe. I'm representing your country. There is one allegiance that unites us all, and that is to America. America. It's the allegiance to America. No matter our background or income or geography, we're all citizens of this blessed land. And no matter our color or the blood, the color of the blood we bleed, it's the same red blood of great, great patriots. Remember, great patriots. We all salute with pride the same American flag, and we all are equal, totally equal, in the eyes of Almighty God. We're equal. Thank you. And I want to thank, by the way, the evangelical community, the Christian community, communities of faith, rabbis and priests and pastors, ministers, because the support for me was a record, as you know, not only in terms of numbers of people, but percentages of those numbers that voted for Trump. So I want to thank you folks. That was amazing, an amazing outpouring. And I will not disappoint you. As long as we have faith in each other and trust in God, then there is no goal at all beyond our reach. There is no dream too large, no task too great. We are Americans, and the future belongs to us. The future belongs to all of you. And America is coming about, and it's coming back, and it's roaring, and you can hear it. It's going to be bigger and better. It is going to be. It is going to be. Remember. And it's roaring. It's going to be bigger and better and stronger than ever before. I want to thank you and Matt and Mercedes. I want to thank the two of you and all of the supporters that I have. I see them, they're all over the place. You are really great people. I want to thank you. And I want to say to you, God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you, folks. Thank you. Thank you.
But if you try something